And welcome to another exciting episode of Season 3 of The Energy That Surrounds Us. I'm your host, Michael, and tonight I have a couple that I am super excited to have on. They are an amazing duo, and I had the privilege and honor to actually meet them at a paranormal event in Denton, Texas. So, shout out to Texas.
Woohoo! Yeehaw!
So it is my distinct pleasure and honor to introduce this amazing duo to you all, and I'm sure you all will love to hear about these experiences as much as I am. I give you the amazing, incredible, so nice Jeannie Van Hoose and Dale Woodby.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, Michael, and thank you so much for having us as guests on your podcast. We're very excited and very honored. So thank you so much.
I'm very excited to have you guys on as well, and we had so much fun talking about experiences in Denton that I was like, I just had a feeling in the back of my mind, like, I need to have these people on because I feel like there's so much more that they have to share.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And it was a pleasure meeting you. And we did have an awesome time in Denton at the library ghost hunting. It was quite an exciting event with the para hunters and Teal Gray and Tui Snyder and all the rest of our members. We had a great time.
Yes, and speaking of which, w- could you both take a moment and introduce what paranormal background and experiences like that you guys share real quick
Oh,
so people can
absolutely.
understand more about who you are and
Yes, I would be happy to. I'm Jeannie Van Hoos, and I'm a former school teacher. And my paranormal experiences started when I was a child. And I had my first one when I was living in Key West, Florida. And it was back when I was probably about 11, 12 years old. And that's when I had my first paranormal experience, which took me completely aback. I was not expecting anything like this. And being a child at that age, when I asked my parents about it, my mother told me, well, it's because you're becoming a preteen and you're going through hormonal changes and you've got a very active imagination and that's all it is. And I accepted that excuse. And because I was just a child, I had no idea. And so it wasn't until I became an adult and continued to have these strange experiences. And now I'm older and wiser, and I'm knowing now that some of these events are not natural occurrences. And so that's when I knew that there was something else going on. And I reached out to other people with paranormal backgrounds, and we gravitated towards each other. And it's like you find your people. You find people who can relate to some of the experiences that you've had. So mine started back when I was a child.
very cool. And Dale, how about you?
Mine actually didn't start until about probably 7 years ago. I had my first experience in the house that I grew up in. Actually, uh, and it was like there was nothing else could explain it other than paranormal. And so I started doing some investigating and life after death. People that had been like on the operating table in the ER and have died for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes at a time and had been brought back to life and their stories, hearing their stories, and they were consistent. like I would say 70% of the things I was looking on YouTube, and the experiences were that the people that would die on the operating table, their heart would no longer have a heartbeat. They showed no signs of activity in the brain, and they levitated out of their body up into the top of the operating room and was looking down on their self and the doctors and what the doctors were doing to them. And they all seemed to mention this bright light. And some of them actually went to the bright light, uh, and uh, the ones, and then they were brought back into their body, and they were able to tell the operating doctors what they were doing on their bodies while they were legally dead. And so, that just, okay, there's something more to this. There is a supernatural. There is a life after death. Uh, I'm starting to see a pattern, and then Jeannie and I meet, and she's into the paranormal and has had a lot more experiences than I have. But since we've met, I've had some pretty compelling experiences.
Well, that's really cool, and I love how you both have your unique stories, and then you meet and you gravitate towards each other, and the experiences just continue. And it's not a, well, because this one may not believe as much, so it gets quiet, and the other person's like, well, he doesn't like it, so I'm not going to do it. So I love how you both support each other and are doing it together.
Well, thank you, Michael. Um, Being in the paranormal, as much as I am, it is a personal thing with me because it did start with me when I was a child, and I continue to have more unusual things happen that you couldn't explain. And as I got older and wiser, I knew there was something more to this because I knew it wasn't natural. And I suddenly uh, found out that there were skeptics and who are non-believers and people who have had experiences like mine since they were a child. And so as I got older, I thought, well, wait a minute. What's happening to me, the experiences that I'm having, I can't be a skeptic because I'm actually witnessing these things that are happening to me. And being an intelligent person, I'm trying to find excuses and reasonable um, responses for why it happened, and I can't find them.
And the first thing you want to do is debunk it. You want to try everything to debunk it, and then whenever you can, it's like, well, there's something more to it. And that's when you know.
And that's the first thing that most paranormal, if not all paranormal investigators do. We want, before we say, oh, yes, it's paranormal, it's a ghost, it's a spirit, whatever, we want to always debunk it first. Try to debunk it first before you go to that conclusion. And that's what I did. And I thought, no, there was no way that could have been a short in the electricity. There's no way that opened up on its own because of the house being uneven. The wind blew it. I would go to all of those first and try to debunk. And there was just no way that you could come out with any other answer except that it was paranormal. And
Right.
so,
I
being
was just going to point out real quick that the frame was acting up a little bit earlier. It's an iPhone thing. It's not the frame doing anything paranormal. It's so I just didn't want people watching the show start commenting, "Oh my god, the picture was doing words or
That's
something. It
funny.
was moving."
well, when I met Dale, I told Dale that I was into the paranormal, and that I had been in it a while because I started having experiences when I was a child. And as a paranormal investigator, I don't try to convince anyone. I want them to have an experience because to me, them having firsthand experience is more important, so that they'll understand much better. So I told Dale, I said, I don't expect you to understand my world right now, but I want you to go along with me and experience what it's like to be a paranormal investigator so that you can see for yourself. And so I took him along on several of my investigations, and he was convinced by what he saw, what he heard. And I would have to say that he became a believer when more of a believer when we went to the Jefferson Hotel.
Right. And before we go there, I want to ask something because it was something I was asked one time, and I think it's something we don't really consider. And a lot of people have different views of it. And so, my question to both of you is, how do you define the paranormal?
Hmm.
For,
Well,
for myself, it'd be something that wouldn't be um, physically explainable other than paranormal. I like with my very first experience, it was through electricity, and the room I was in, the lights were flickering, and which is very explainable through electricity. That's not paranormal by itself. But whenever I started hearing a voice from a far part of the house, a male voice, but couldn't make out what they were saying. And then on either side of my bed, I had a radio alarm clock, and they were both in the off position. And both of them, whenever the lights were flickering and I heard the voice, both came on blaring as loud as they could be. And I went back to the room, and they were in the off position. I put each one of them, two different alarm clocks, in every position they could be in to turn them off, and neither one of them would go off. I had to literally unplug each one of them to shut them off. Nothing explains that through electricity. That's not how electricity works. Going through two different devices that are in the off position and turn them on. So, to me, that along with the lights flickering, along with the voice, uh, was definitely a sign of the paranormal.
I like that because I did a little article for an online newsletter because everybody was asking me what is, paranormal, and the bottom line I got from everything was anything that's basically unexplainable is considered paranormal. And so my mind went like boom, going, wait, I'm not limited on topics anymore. I can talk about so many things now. And
mm-hmm.
so, was it the same for you, Jeannie, or do you have a different
Mine
definition?
is the same as Dale. The paranormal is an unnatural
It's actually,
experience.
you keep saying unnatural. Actually, I find it natural.
Okay.
Uh, I believe they're spirits. I believe that when people die, their spirit leave their body. It's just what I've gathered so far in my journey. And some go to the white light, and some don't make it there. And those are the spirits among us. Uh, and maybe some are just denied the white light, as well.
Mhm. And I just think that the paranormal is an event or an occurrence that cannot be scientifically explained. It's
But
it's like it. What I mean by unnatural is that it's not happening what according to what we naturally expect to happen.
Yeah,
It's the unexpected.
proven by science. Yeah.
And if it can't be proven by science, then it has to be supernatural. It's got to be and people have asked me, why are there spirits that are earthbound? Well, I tell them I have no idea. I wish I knew the answer to that, but I said only God knows that. Only God's the only one that can answer that question. I don't know why they're earthbound. All I can do is assume that they're here because they didn't go to the light. They didn't want to go to the light. They wanted to stay where they are. Uh, I don't know. Now, I have talked to a lot of other people involved in the paranormal, and I get different answers all the time from different people. And so I have just come to the conclusion that the only logical reason I can think is that some of them are guardian angels, some of them chose to stay. They didn't go to the light; they wanted to stay. Some of them don't even know they're dead. They think they're still alive and don't know they're in spirit form. Some of your paranormal experiences are residual, and it's just a repetitive haunt that happens like an old film that repeats itself over and over and over at a time where it's like a time warp in the environment.
That is odd.
Yeah, that to me is the oddest one of all. And I do have a story about that one that I'll share with you later on in the program.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And you brought up an interesting term that I find a lot of people question whether it's paranormal or not, and that's the supernatural. And when people start talking the supernatural, they're like, you know, the Holy Spirit or angels and all that jazz, and demonology, I think, falls in there. And I have talked to some people who are like, yes, that's paranormal. And other people are, no, that's not paranormal. That's a whole nother field. So I'm curious what your guys' view of the supernatural. Does it fall under paranormal, or is it two different aspects?
Well, if we want to label guardian angels as supernatural, then yes, guardian angels do exist. And my life has been saved 3 times by a guardian angel. So but I don't put my guardian angels who saved me, I don't put them in the same category as when I go on a paranormal investigation and we find spirits.
Agreed.
It's two different. It to me, it's two different types of activity. Um, I think that your guardian angel is more spiritual. Your guardian angel is could be a relative, a past relative that's watching over you. But I do not consider them the same thing as when I go ghost hunting and I go and we talk to ghosts in hotels or we talk to ghosts in people's houses. You know, that to me is a whole different level.
Very cool. And Dale, do you have a view on this, or?
I totally agree with what she just said. And going to the part where there are the people maybe that didn't go to the light, maybe that's why they're trapped as a spirit here on earth. They're also bad spirits, and those seem you hear. I'm sure you've heard. I know a lot of people into this have of the the dark shadows, and the dark shadows, I believe, are the evil ones, and you want to leave those alone. You don't want to deal with those. You want to mess with those. You want to turn around and walk away whenever there's a dark shadow.
Mm-hmm.
That's different from a spirit from a decent person that just didn't make it to the light. And that's just my opinion, is they didn't go the light. That's why they're still here. There's got to be an explanation, and that's all that makes sense to me.
Right. And I've had a lot of people ask me, why are there children's spirits? Why are they still earthbound? I don't know the answer. Only God knows the answer to that. But we can assume that a child is not going to know to look for the light. A child is young. A child's not going to know that. I know that back in Victorian days, people died at home. And when they knew that somebody was on their deathbed, they would cover up all the mirrors in the room, so that when their loved one died, that when they left their body, they would not get confused from the light provided by heaven, by God, with the reflection of the light from the mirror. And so they covered up mirrors back during Victorian age. So, and another thing that's interesting about that is that we have caught spirits in mirrors. So how did they get in there? Maybe back during the Victorian days, maybe they knew something. Maybe they knew more about that than we did. But you can catch spirits in mirrors.
That's true. And one thing, too, talking about the Victorian age, and I'm wondering if it plays part into what you're talking about with like the kids and everything, is they would take photographs with the deceased member.
Mhm.
And there are places all over the world that say when you take a photo of me, you steal a part of my essence. So, do you think possibly when we call it macabre, people taking pictures with their deceased family members could have been trapping part of them here?
Wow, that's an interesting question. And again, I don't know the answer to that. I know I have traveled extensively throughout the world, and I have been to countries where we were told not to take pictures of certain people of a certain culture, because they believed that if you took a picture of them, that you would rob them of their spirit. And I do know that in some countries around the world, there are people who believe that. Now, talking about taking pictures of your child, which are called mourning pictures, and they did this back during the Victorian age, and I have some of those pictures. And the interesting uh, the interesting background on that is that the pictures that I have are called daguerreotypes. And these are the first pictures that were ever taken of a person's image, and it was on glass. And only the very richest people could afford to have this type of photograph made on glass that was put in little booklets. And many of the women back then, of course, lost their children in an early age because of illnesses that children don't die of today, but they did back during the Victorian age. And this was the only photograph, the only memory that they would have of their child. And that's why they would go and have a photograph made of their child, of their deceased child, um, because that was the first photographs to ever come out, called daguerreotypes. And then from daguerreotypes, they moved into the tintypes. And they did the same thing with deceased children with tintypes. And then from there, they went to Carta Vista pictures that are made on cardboard, like thick cardboard type paper. And there are pictures like that of children that are deceased. So you have to remember, Michael, that back then they did have the multitude of pictures like we can get our hands on and take pictures after pictures after pictures of all our family members and all our loved ones. Back in the 1800s, they didn't have that luxury, and they had to do whatever they could. And think of the mothers who were not rich, who could not afford to have a picture made, and didn't have that luxury of doing that. So when you look back at these daguerreotypes of these pictures of children with their mothers holding them and they're deceased, these were taken out of love, out of memory, out of I don't want to ever forget my child. I want to be able to look and see my child again. I think that's why those pictures were taken.
I agree, and something just dawned on me. I was thinking about when we were talking, like, they say they covered the mirrors so they could pass freely. Glass is like a mirror, and so if you're hanging this picture up, could it the child look at it and go, "Oh, here's a mirror," and like you were saying, sidetracked, and lo and behold, it's still around now because it went to the wrong spot, so to speak.
That's exactly right. And for example, Myrtle's Plantation in St. Francisville, Louisiana, is one of my favorite places to go in ghost hunt. And they have a famous mirror that hangs in there that has handprints. And they have changed that glass. They have changed the filament. They have done everything. And the handprints still come back. So when we were there, I saw the handprints. And I'm taking pictures of the handprints. Um, and I go back and I look at my pictures, and there is a woman dressed in the 1800s with her hair piled on top of her head that appeared in the picture. She's in there. And I showed it to the people who are the caretakers of Myrtle's plantation, and I showed it to them, and they were fascinated, and they wanted a copy of it because they said that was one of the best catches they'd seen in a while. And they thought it looked like the young mother who had married the owner, who was in the military. He was one of the military men during the Civil War, and she married him. She was young, and they had children. And they said that who I caught in the mirror, it looked very much like pictures they had seen of the woman who once lived there. And so I caught her in the mirror, if that's the case. So was that a mirror that wasn't covered up when she died? And she did die in the home. Did they not cover it up? I mean, there is so mysterious things that happen that can't be explained, but we know they're there and we know it happened. But how do you explain it? You can't. You can't explain it, and a lot of things will happen that somebody will say, "Well, how could that possibly be?" I wish I knew, but it happened. I saw it with my own eyes. Everybody in the room saw it. Can we recreate it? No. Can we ask them to come back? No. A lot of people will go to a hotel that has been labeled an active paranormal hotel. It's got ghosts everywhere. It's a haunted hotel. They think that because they go, that they're going to see a ghost. They think that when they go, okay, I didn't see a ghost while I was there. I'm very disappointed. Your hotel is not haunted. Well, you can't do that. That's unfair to the hotel. You can't say that because ghosts don't perform when you want them to.
Right.
And I try to explain this to people. You may not have a paranormal experience. You just will enjoy the hotel, the history surrounding it, the beautiful rooms. But if you don't have a paranormal experience, that doesn't mean that the hotel is not haunted. It means that you didn't have an experience that particular time that you were there. If we could make ghosts perform when we wanted to, we'd all be rich.
Very true. And to backtrack for a second, because there's something I remembered about Myrtle's plantation that is interesting about the room where that mirror is. And one thing I want to address too with that mirror is it's mercury glass mirror, which is rare.
Mhm.
So to have it be replaced and the handprints reappear, you can't do that with mercury. So that's adds another element to it. But the other thing that when you were talking about it caught my attention when you said, was the mirror covered not covered up. Remember that the doors on both sides of that foyer, I think it was a foyer or entrance area,
Yeah.
had
Mhm.
fleur de lis on the glass of the doors, and they said those were wards that were put up to one, keep any spirits from entering the building, but secondly was anything in the building could not get out. And
Ooh.
so when you say, like, you caught her, could it have been a mirror exposed? I can't help wondering if that legend is true. Did they trap
Mhm.
her in there by the doors if she died in there and she couldn't leave through the doors? And if you
Mhm.
think about, if you're a ghost and you're don't realize you're a ghost and you try to leave through a door and you can't, you're going to think I'm stuck here. I can't get out. You're not going to think, "Oh wait, I'm not in a material form. I can just walk through. I'm
Right.
not limited by this." But yeah, I mean it begs an interesting question, do those work and did they trap her there?
Right. Right. So there's so many mysteries. And I know that we have some very talented paranormal investigators who have enormous gifts like psychic mediums. And those to me are gifts from God. I think God does provide some people with that vision to help give us answers. And of course, I know there are some that are charlatans too. And I wouldn't trust them as far as I could throw them. But I do know that there are some people that have um, wonderful gifts that are on the up and up, and Teal Gray is one of them, and I trust her wholeheartedly, and she has I sent her just to give you an example. I sent her a picture of something I took inside my house, and I could see I could see a person in the picture. I couldn't see it clearly, but I could tell that there was something there that was taking up that space. And being a paranormal investigator, I knew that had to be a spirit that was standing in that picture. And I sent it to her, and she said, "Yes, you have a spirit there in that picture, and it is a male figure, and his name is Jimmy." And I said, "Whoa, okay." And she said, and he had a drug problem. He was very heavily involved in drugs. And I said, "Okay, all right. Well, why is he here in this house?" And she says, "I have no idea, but he likes it there and he wants to stay because he's lost and he's lonely, and he wants to stay in this house because he likes it in this house and he feels safe in this house and he wants to stay." And she says he's not dangerous and you don't need to be fearful of him. So I decided to do some investigation. Oh, and by the way, she did say that Jimmy lived in this neighborhood, that he had lived in this neighborhood. Well, come to find out through research and through Dale found out too that, and he knew because I told him, I said, Dale, this is what Teal told me. And sure enough, next door, there was a guy, a teenager that once lived in the 70s. His name was Jimmy. And Jimmy was, he was one of those rambunctious teenagers that got himself into trouble and got into the drug scene, and he was known to be heavily involved and apparently got caught and was sent to prison and was sentenced to spend the rest of his life in prison, and he died in prison. So Teal was right. She was absolutely right. She had no idea that this young teenage boy had lived next door to Dale's childhood.
What I don't understand is that Jimmy, we found past the age of 62 and still seeing him as a teenager. I'm not sure how that works in the spirit world, but
yeah. And I asked Teal about that. I said, why would he appear in his young age? And she says it's because that was the last time, that's the way he looked the last time he had been in that house. And I asked Dale, had that guy ever been in here? And he said, yeah, he came in a couple of times because he was a neighbor.
When Mama wasn't home.
And he did come over here to visit Dale. And again, they were teenagers, and he was about 4 years older than you.
yes, he was.
And he did come over here. And so Teal said, and I believe this, that that the reason I caught him in this picture at his young age is because that's the age he was the last time he was in this house. So now that adds another layer to the mystery of the paranormal. And Teal says that they will come back in a younger look than if they died when they were old. You might see them again and they're in their younger body. Now, when my mother passed, my mother was very, very ill. She was, when she died, she had not gotten out of bed in a year. But before she was confined to the bed for a year, she was on a walker and a wheelchair. And I had a visitation in my dream from her, and it was real, and she was there, and we talked, and she was no longer on walking on a walker or in a wheelchair. She was walking along with all kinds of energy and walking with speed. And that was one of the things I said to her. I said, Mama, look at you. You're back to walking, and I can barely keep up with you. And I said, this is wonderful. So when I saw my mother in this visitation, she was not crippled up and impaired like she was when she left this world. So there's another mystery. And I'm sure that some of your viewers probably have had this experience too, where they have seen a spirit that came back at a different age, or their loved one visited them after death and they weren't sick anymore and they were back to their happy normal self.
Yeah.
So do I know why? No, I don't. And I'm not even going to pretend that I have an answer. I don't. And I'm not even going to make an assumption, because I think that's God's work. And I think that one day we'll find out. when we're on the other side of God. But right now, I don't question it. I just say, well, God, thank you for letting my mother come and visit me, because I took her death very hard, and that was the most wonderful thing that could have happened to me, is to see her again in my dream.
That is a
So,
wonderful gift. And growing up in metaphysics and not in like mainstream dogmatic thinking, it's interesting, when you mention, this, like, Jimmy was teenager versus the 60s. I have been raised with the belief of when I pass on or transition, I can come back and I can choose to come back as teenager or young adult or when they last saw me. And the reason is we're taught that our loved ones or spirits will choose the age they resonated with or had the most fun with or felt the most alive,
Hmm.
and or their favorite age. And so, like, when you were telling the story about Jimmy, I was thinking in my head going, well, describing him the way you were, he probably had the time of his life, so to speak, as the teenager. So it makes sense that he would come back and be seen as the teenager.
mhm,
The last way I seen him as well.
and Teal said that was his happiest time, and probably that's why he's here, because he probably felt safe and happy, because this was a happy home. And Dale's mother and father and sister, they had a wonderful life. It was a beautiful place to grow up, and he probably, when he came over there, he probably enjoyed being there, and like you said, had the time of his life while he was there. And Teal said that's what happened. That, because I asked her, I said, well, he died in prison at the age of 62. Why would I see him in this photograph as a teenager? And it makes sense. She says this is what happens, and it happens a lot in the paranormal world.
It does. And another thing I was going to mention in my metaphysic upbringing that kind of helps me dealing with death and the parting of a soul to one dimension to another, or however you believe it, is, for example, like my father was on a walker and had trouble walking. And when he passed, everybody that sees him that we talk with sees him moving around and not having the walker. And so, what I think is what's going on is we think, okay, we're told their suffering has ended, that they're in a place of peace,
Mhm.
but there's that unknown aspect of, is that true or not? And so when they come and show us them that way, I think it brings a peace to us that it's like, okay, not only is one, the afterlife, a real thing, if you so choose to believe that's what that is, but they aren't suffering anymore. They're not limited anymore. They are free to move around as much as they want. And that's a beautiful gift to see.
Yes, I agree. I agree 100%. And it also says in the Bible that your body will be back to the way it came into this world. You will be, your life will be restored, and you will not be suffering. And I believe that. I believe that. And so, and my mother coming back was enough evidence to convince me that 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 when we go to heaven, we won't be in pain. It will be a joyous time, and we will be happy. And so, and I tell all your viewers that if you are missing a loved one or recently lost a loved one, it's sad because we miss their presence. We miss seeing them and hearing their voice and being able to touch them or pick up a phone and talk to them when we want to. But that can't, that's not possible. But there is a there is going to be a reunion, and you will see them again, and it will be a joyous reunion. And that's what I tell everyone. We all need to look forward to that. Don't look forward to being, oh, something dreaded. It's not going to be dreadful. It's going to be a happy occasion. And that's what everybody should look forward to.
Right. And I love the fact that as I was watching, you guys were on another podcast show, and we have something in common I didn't know about at the time when I met you that I think is something rather cool. And that is, I have been to the Jefferson Hotel several times. And so when I was seeing you guys doing an episode on it, I was like, oh my gosh, I know that place. I know those rooms really well. And I'm like, and there's only one room I haven't gone into because I thought I was in, but realized I was just at the entrance to and didn't know it. And that was the disappointments room.
In the attic.
Right.
Uh-huh.
I
What'd you
was
think
sitting on
about
the
that?
attic thinking that was it. And they were like, no, it's actually is a room up there. And I was like, oh man.
Yeah, Pam and Jeremy Jones, the couple who owned the Jefferson Hotel, and they happen to be very dear friends of ours, and I'm sure yours as well. They're just the sweetest couple, and we were so thrilled when they bought the Jefferson Hotel because there was a time when the Jefferson Hotel sat defunct for about 3 to 5 years, and we were worried that nobody would buy it. And when we found out that fellow ghost hunters bought the hotel, we were thrilled beyond words. All right, Pam and Jeremy Jones bought the hotel, and they're going to do it justice. They're going to bring the girl back, and they did. And so we're very happy about it. And that is my favorite hotel to stay, my favorite hotel to investigate. I love it. I feel at home there. I'm not afraid of any of the spirits, although Dale has been attacked.
We've had some compelling experiences.
Yes, we
Oh
have.
yeah.
And so Dale has been attacked twice by a spirit there that we all know. That is not a very good spirit, and his name is Nick. And he worked back during the time when the hotel was a factory, and the Jefferson Hotel has been many things, and one of the things that it was a factory. And back during the 1800s, and probably around the turn of the century, they hired children before the child labor law came out. And they hired them because they had small hands and they could fix machinery. They could stick their hands in between things and fix
Small areas.
yeah, small areas. And so there were a lot of children that worked there, and that's how Nick came in contact with them. And he was not a good man. He did terrible things to children.
We've learned a lot of Nick in our investigations. He was a child molester. He was abused as a kid. He took his own life at 25 years old with a gun to the head. He's revealed.
Yeah. And you want to tell? Do you have time for Dale to tell you about his attack at the Jefferson Hotel?
Sure.
There's been two actually.
You can tell both.
My first day there, Jeannie had told me about Nick, and we stayed in the doll room, which is one of the probably least rented rooms there.
Yep.
People are afraid to stay in there, it seems. But she had told me her experience and how he has, said ugly things to her, and how he used to molest the children that worked there. And so I called him out before we went to sleep. I called him out, and I said, you want to pick on kids, you want to pick on women, pick on me. Here I am. Show yourself. And he didn't show himself at the moment. We went on to sleep, and a bit later, I woke up and couldn't breathe, and it was like I had hands around my throat. It was that kind of couldn't breathe. But there was nobody in the room but Jeannie and I. And it went on for a good minute. I could not breathe. And I went to the floor on all fours. And it went into almost 2 minutes. And Jeannie was like had her hand in her phone in her hand, was about to call 911, thinking maybe I was like having a heart attack or and then finally he let off, or it let off. It let off. I didn't know at the time what it was. Nothing. I've never had an issue like that before. Nothing even close. It wasn't like I was choking on anything. Didn't have like any kind of lung issues going on at the moment or anything. It let off, and we didn't really know what it was.
So I told him that it was Nick.
Yeah.
I have a few gifts. I'm an empath, a sensitive, and a healer. And I knew that he was in the room. He always finds me when I go to the Jefferson Hotel. And part of the reason why he doesn't like me is because I am a school teacher by profession, and I protect children. And when we found out that he was a child molester and he was hurting the children, some of the spirit children were asking for help. And we found through investigation that he was terrorizing the spirit children there at the Jefferson
We
Hotel.
literally have recordings of where we've listened in with recorders and could hear the children
Begging.
In a child's voice, begging to help me.
And they're begging and crying.
And also we have on recording Nick saying, it's Nick here.
Yeah. And he lets us know.
Pretty compelling evidence.
Yeah, he lets us know, or he lets me know when he's around me. And he always knows when I'm there because he finds me one way or the other. And I told Dale when we went, I said, whatever you do, do not provoke. Well, Dale had no experiences with the provoking of spirits. And I told him, I said, in the paranormal world, you don't provoke. That's one thing. You would, and my philosophy is you wouldn't provoke them in life. Why would you provoke them in death?
Right.
You treat them with respect. And that's the way I approach every investigation. I treat every spirit with respect. And I tell the spirit that I'm here because I care and I want to know more about them and I want to know their story and would they please share it. And so I go in with love and respect and appreciation. And I told him, I said, please don't ever provoke. Well, when I told him some of the things that Nick had done to me and some of the names that he had called me, Dale got mad and he said
to children.
And
I called him out.
Yeah.
I called him out.
And Dale called me out.
And she was telling me when she realized what I was doing when I was talking and calling him out. She was saying, stop, don't do that.
Yeah, I said, Dale, do not stop, please. Don't say another word. Well, he wouldn't stop. He just kept going.
Oh
And I
yeah.
told him, I said, Dale, I said, this is not going to be good. I can tell you right now, this is not going to be good.
Nothing
And,
happened at the time.
and nothing at the
Until I
time
was asleep.
happened. But when we fell asleep, and in the middle of the night, he raises up and he is choking. He can't breathe. He's grasping at his throat, and he's trying to get air, and he's falling on the ground, and he's trying to breathe. And I'm asking, "Are you okay? What's wrong? What's wrong?" Well, the first thing I go to is he having a heart attack, a stroke? Is there something wrong? Do I need to call 911 and get him to a hospital? That's my first thought. And then Nick popped in my head. And I've got that gift that things pop in my head. I get images, and there he was. And I knew he was there. And I said, Nick, leave him alone. Please leave him alone. I said, he did not mean to provoke you. Please leave him alone. And I said, he won't do this again. I promise. And I said, I apologize. I apologize for him. I apologize to you. So please, would you let him go? And he got better. And he said, what in the world happened to me? And I said, Dale, I tried to tell you. I said, that was Nick.
Now we opened up the voice box, and she asked him,
Did he attack? I said, who attacked Dale? I'm on the spirit box. And I asked, who attacked Dale? And clear as a bell, you hear him say, Nick.
yeah,
I said, why?
Nice.
I said, why did you do this? Why are you doing this to him?
that was in the
Yeah. And
other room.
so we're going to go fast forward.
So
that
a week later,
Yeah.
we stay there again at the Jefferson Hotel, and we stay in
It's the speakeasy
the
room.
speakeasy room, different room, and everything went great.
No
Went to bed.
provoking.
No provoking. I didn't provoke that night,
We didn't say anything really.
and so it's probably better you start off the story because I wasn't awake to know.
Right. So in the middle of the night, I'm awakened by Dale talking in his sleep. And he's just not mumbling like some people do when they talk in their sleep.
Like I
He
normally do.
is shouting. He's shouting, and that's what woke me up. And I looked over at him, and he's shouting, I already told you. And I'm listening, and I'm waiting to see if he's gonna say, you know.
You already know.
You already know. And then I waited, and he says, I love you. And I'm thinking, what on earth is he saying? What was he talking about? So then he goes to choking again. And
then I wake up.
Yeah, he keeps
and I'm choking to death. and it only went on for about a minute this time instead of a couple of minutes. So I didn't go as long and got back to breathing. And then she initially quickly asked me, do you remember what you said? Because I think it freaked you out.
It did freak me out. I said, did you? He said, what happened? What happened? Was that Nick? And I said, yeah, I think he attacked you again, Dale.
That was my first question.
He said, well, why? Because we haven't said anything. We didn't do anything. I mean, why would he attack me again? And I said, well, let's get the spirit box out and let's find out.
She told me, she said, do you remember? And she told me what I said in my sleep. And normally if I wake up from having a dream, I remember at least part of it.
And I said,
the dream.
I said, Dale.
I don't remember any of it.
I said, Dale, do you know that you talked in your sleep? And he said, no. I said, well, you shouted. And he said, what? And I said, yeah, you shouted. And he said, well, what did I say? And I said, you said first, I already told you, you know what I mean.
You already know.
You already know, and I love you. And Dale said, I said all that? And I said, yeah, you said all that. And I said, and you shouted it. And I said, let's get the let's get the spirit box out and let's see what happens. So we got the spirit box out, and I said, who's in the room with us? And you hear a man say, Nick.
Plain as day.
I said, did you attack Dale? And he said, yes. I said, why did you attack Dale? I already told you.
No. Hurt.
Oh, he said, hurt. He said, hurt. And I said, why do you want to hurt him? And he said, kill.
Oh.
And I said, kill? Why would you want to kill him? And he said, you already know. And I said, I already know what? And he says, you know what I mean. I already told you. And I said, you already told me what? I love you. Class A EVPs. Class A.
He said exactly what I said.
And he said exactly what came out of Dale's mouth.
What she told me, I hope said.
It freaked me out. I was freaking out. And we did not have any of this on recording because I just wanted to find out at that moment who attacked him and if it was for sure Nick.
Yeah.
So we weren't recording or getting any of this on video. And I regret that we didn't, because it was spot on what what Dale said, Nick repeated verbatim. And I told Dale, I said, I've never had, in all my years of being a paranormal investigator, I have never witnessed anything like this before, ever. So about a month later, we go back to the Jefferson Hotel. We stay in the doll room. We're ghost hunting the doll room. We're using the flashlight.
And just not to interrupt you, but the third night we stayed, I didn't even say nothing to you. I have sense, now, but I prayed. I said a prayer that we not be bothered by any spirits in our sleep. And I prayed to the Lord God and Jesus, and nothing happened, and it hasn't happened since. And we've stayed a lot of times since then.
Yeah,
and since I prayed, nothing's happened.
And and I've always said to anybody that's afraid of the paranormal, if you're afraid of anything that's happening to you, just pray, say the Lord's Prayer, and that will help you. And so far it has worked. I've talked to other people that I've advised to do that, and they've told me that they felt much better after they did that, and they weren't afraid anymore. So about a month later, we go back to the Jefferson Hotel, and this is for HHNL, History, Haunts, and Legends, that they have in Jefferson twice a year. That's run by Jody Breckenridge. And they're getting ready to have one in April the 5th. It's coming up. So all your viewers, go get your tickets, get your rooms, and go. We're gonna be there investigating as well. So we go back for HHNL this past November, and we were contacting Nick through the flashlight. And long story short, we found out that the reason Dale was attacked again in the speakeasy room is because he has not forgiven Dale, and he's not going to forgive him.
I've never asked him to. She asked him to for me.
I asked him. I said, are you still mad at Dale? Is that why you attacked him in the speakeasy room? Are you still mad at him? And the flashlight came on.
Yeah.
So then I thanked him for turning it on, and I said, can you turn the flashlight off? So he turns it off, and we've got this on video. And I said, are you still mad at Dale? Flashlight comes on. And I said, thank you, Nick. Go ahead and turn it off so I can ask you something else. He turns it off. I said, turn the flashlight on, Nick, if you forgive Dale. flashlight wouldn't come on. I said, let me ask you again, Nick. I said, if you forgive me, Dale, would you please turn the flashlight on? He wouldn't turn that flashlight on for anything. So then I said, so are you still going to stay mad at him? Are you still going to be mad at him? And the flashlight came on. So
What's
it's an
funny
on,
is,
it's an
yeah,
ongoing battle.
My
it
God's got
is. And what's funny is when you were telling the story, and the second you said he went back and and he was in the room, my first thought that came in my head was he's not going to forget.
No.
And it's like, and then I was like, maybe he attacked, prevented it, like trying to get the upper hand, thinking he's going to provoke again and be like, oh, let me get you first. But it's interesting that you're saying, no, he remembers Dale, and no, he's not going to forgive him. And I was over here having the same thoughts of, oh yeah, he remembers you, and he's not going to forget.
Yeah, you're spot on, Mike. You're spot on.
I mean, if I wasn't a believer before, I mean, him being able to speak through me like that and choke me out like that twice
Mm-hmm.
for that amount of time.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
it's
and
real.
for your audience and who's listening, spirit can attack you if they're mad at you or if they're pranksters and there's something that they don't like about you or uh, they're a poltergeist. They'll push you down the stairs. They'll do all kinds of things to you. They'll scratch you. They'll pull your hair. I mean, they just do that. They can be ornery.
Yeah, and I would have never believed it before I experienced it, no doubt.
Right.
Yeah.
And another thing that I think is interesting that I don't think a lot of people think about or do is you're entering their space. And out
True.
of respect, you should always ask permission before entering their
Mhm.
space. And so I may not verbalize it, but in my mind, I'm sending out the wavelength of, hey, I mean you no harm. Is it okay to enter your space? And if I don't get a like wave of energy back that's like,
Mhm.
no, I'm like, all
Right.
right, I'm coming in.
Right.
Right? And that comes with experience. I had no experience really to speak of at that time. So
And he's learned to listen to me now.
Oh, I bet.
Don't do it.
And
I don't
what's
regret it. I
funny
mean,
is when you
it
said he
was
provoked
there.
him, I was over here shaking my head, no. I was like, no,
It
don't,
showed me a
don't.
lot. I'm glad I experienced that, but
Right.
I don't know that I would suggest that to your viewers.
No.
No, I've seen people who provoke, and I'm like, nope. And in full honesty, that's one of the reasons I don't like watching Ghost Adventures on TV,
Oh,
Right.
is
that
because he sits
that
there and
thing's
provokes everything and then says, you go in there and you go spend the time with them. I'm like, oh no, if I'm provoking, I'm not sending somebody else in. I'm going on my own. That's not cool to stir the pot, so to speak, and then send somebody else in to deal with it.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And that's why I told Dale not to provoke him because I know the level of energy that Nick has. And he has done things to me in the past. Um, he calls me bad names. And I had been on a ghost hunt at the Jefferson Hotel prior to this, before I took Dale, and we had been on a ghost hunt there, and I was staying in the doll room again, but this time I was by myself. And we had called Nick out, but we were just saying, Nick, you need to stop what you're doing. what you're doing or what you did to children is not right. It's wrong. You need to stop and this, that, and the other. And I was a little more forceful being a school teacher. And I just said that you need to stop this. This isn't right. And you need to leave the children alone. Well, when it was all over with and I retired that night to my room in the doll room, I go in, I get ready for bed, I get in the bed, I lay down, and I felt him in the room. I knew he was in there. And I thought, okay, I don't know what you're doing or what you're going to say or what, but I knew he was in the room. And he came over and I could feel his presence coming over to the bed where I was. And I'm laying on my side and I could feel him getting close to me because I get this tingling sensation on my face and my hair. I get like chills when spirit is near me. And he got real close to me and I could feel him. And he whispered in my ear and clear as a bell, he called me the B word. And I didn't say anything back to him. I did not move. I didn't roll over. I didn't confront him. I did not do a thing, but I said the Lord's Prayer out loud. And I said the Lord's Prayer about 2, 3, 4 times. And then I rolled over and I went to sleep and slept like a baby. So the power
Yeah,
of prayer is,
Absolutely.
yep, your
it
power
is.
is
Yeah,
prayer. Your
yeah,
power
it
is
is.
prayer.
Yeah, it is interesting that everybody always says like, how do you keep from being afraid and while you're doing this? And it's like, oh no,
Yeah,
we're masking it really well. We are in the fear mode, but there's a difference of, I feel like, when you're in investigation mode, as I call it. Yeah, you had the fear, but if I let this fear, you know, grow and prevent me from going further, one, I won't get the answers I'm looking for, and two, the spirit world is just going to walk all over me
right,
and I'm going to lose my ability to investigate. So there is a point where you reach when you're investigating that's where you're like, I have a choice to make. I can leave because I'm afraid, and if I don't go back in, that's it. You're done, in my opinion.
right,
Or you can stand your ground. But when I say stand your ground, I'm not meaning provoking. I just mean you stand there and you just let what's going to happen, but you don't react.
right,
Or you can leave, but then re enter when you're more grounded and you're like, okay, let's continue.
right, right. And I have led investigations with people who have never ghost hunted before. And one of the things that I tell them is don't be a reactor. I said, do not act afraid. Don't be afraid. Don't run out of the room screaming. Don't do any of that stuff. Just stand your ground. And I said, and talk back to them. Just say, I'm not afraid. And I just want you to know I come here in peace. I just want to know your story. I'm not here to bother you. I'm not here to disrespect you.
Yeah, key word. That's all anybody wants is respect. So I'm sure it's the same in the spirit world.
Right. And I know we're at an hour and 15 minutes, and
Oh wow.
but there's one question I have for you both as being, with teams or with on your own. When you're collaborating or, watching shows, what are some of the biggest pet peeves that you see people do and you're looking at yourself and going, why on earth are you doing that? What do you think that's going to get you?
Right. Mine is provoking. I've always, I am a champion for not provoking. Because,
Unless you want quick answers.
yeah, because I always, go, into an investigation with this in mind. We're going into, have a meeting and hopefully meet up with spirits. And it would be like going to visit someone in their home, live, a living person. Well, you do the same thing with the spirit world. You go in and you treat them with respect.
Yeah.
You don't go in there and start demanding and commanding and acting like, well, you better say something. I know this, that, and the other. You just go in and be as respectful as you can and tell them, I know that you're here. I am not afraid. I just want to know more about you, and I want to learn your story, and I would really appreciate it if you would communicate with me and let me know that you're here. And so that would have to be my biggest pet peeve is don't provoke. I hate that. I think that everybody, even in the spirit world, needs to be treated with respect and appreciation.
Yep. Yeah, I concur. Ditto that. It's all about respect. Respect and love.
Yeah.
I will admit one of my biggest ones, and I've even talked with other foundations about this, is, and I agree with them, is as paranormal investigators, we need to stop feeling like angry spirits and going, there's a demon here,
Oh my gosh.
and throwing that word out, or even going a step further and saying, oh, you have these demons attached to you, because people hear that and react, and it may not even be true, and you just set into motion things that never should have been set into motion. And I was talking with the foundation, and this is a story I like to share so people can realize the impact of what they do. And this lady had a son who was acting strange, and she was like, well, I called the paranormal investigative team in because I wanted answers. Well, the paranormal investigative team says to the kid, you have hundreds of demons attached to you. There is no hope for you to get these off. And leaves.
Mm-mm.
And so she then contacts this foundation, and they're like, can you help? And they're like, yes, we can help. We'll be there, as soon as we can. We're looking at our schedule. We're getting you on the books. We understand, what's going on. We can definitely help you. A day or two later, they get a phone call and says, you don't need to come. And he's like, oh no, man, we totally believe what's going on with your son, and we totally believe we can help him. And she says, you don't understand.
It's too late.
My son took his life and wrote in the note, because of all the demons that were attached to me, there was no hope. So I just ended it. And I thought that, I hope, I never hope ill on anyone, but I hope that team hears that and it goes into their hearts and brains and they stop doing that. And that everybody that investigates stops and hears that and stops just flippantly saying, this is here, you're experiencing this, and not giving them hope, or even throwing it out there without even knowing if that's really what it is.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
Well,
that being said, there are black shadows, and I believe they are evil, and you should run from them.
Yeah, but I don't
Right.
think
I'm
they're
not saying don't, run
Right,
from the
right. Just
dark.
the black shadows are different, though. You
Yeah.
probably know what I'm talking about. I'm sure some of the viewers do.
Yeah, the dark shadows, the black shadows that
Right.
they you can see the outline, but there's no features. They're solid black.
Right. And
And those are scary. I don't know much about them. All I know is that they don't speak. I've never had one speak to me, but they will show themselves, but they have no features. You can't tell the gender or anything. I mean, and when they appear, they're scary. And because there's no way of finding out much about them, I avoid them because they won't open up. There's no human characteristics about them, like in some spirits that when we go ghost hunting and we run across spirits, whether it be a child or an adult, they have the human quality. They talk, they say their names, they will converse with you in a language that you know, and sometimes they don't. They use a different language, but it's all that humanality, that the human characteristics. Whereas with the black shadow people, there's nothing. You don't get any talk. Sometimes they change their shapes. Who are these? What are they? Where did they come from? I don't know. Maybe some of your viewers who are in the paranormal know where the black shadow people come from. I don't know. I've never been able to communicate with any of them. They frighten me, but I don't let them know it. I've been confronted by one, and I didn't confront back. I just walked right around it, and I let it know. You can stand right in front of me all you want. I'm not going to talk to you. I'm not going to say get out of my way. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to walk right around you, and I did. I walked around it. So,
yeah,
and I
so
won't, I won't communicate with them. I will not. But I will tell you that at a restaurant of a very good friend of mine, we caught a black shadow, and we caught it in a picture with us, and it was bothering a lady that had never ghost hunted in her life, and this was her first time, and it picked on her and it bothered her, but she started crying. She was upset. She was scared, and it fed on her fear. It just fed on her fear. And so I kept telling her, just don't let it know you're afraid of it. Just leave, just because I didn't know who it was or what kind of spirit it was. So then, to get her mind off of it, I said, why don't we all take a group picture? So we all stood up and took a group picture. And in the picture, standing next to her, was this black shadow. And I have the picture, and I'll send it to you, Mike, and let you see it. It is standing there proud as ever, and it's standing right next to her.
so I have a funny story for you both about shadow entities. Is I'm on the level of saying there's two different levels of shadow beings
Uh huh.
because I've experienced like the ones that you're talking about, but growing up, I would have little black like shadows that would appear around a door frame when I was growing up, and I would see them out of the corner of my eye, and the second I saw them, they would disappear. And
Mm-hmm.
so it was like I was playing peekaboo, so to speak, with them.
Heard
And
that from
so I just viewed them as just fun spirits, to play with. And it was like, I never would have guessed that I was, in touch with paranormal. I just figured this is normal for everybody to see these shadows that appear behind the corner. And it's like, I started viewing it as a game of like in the indigenous peoples, the counting coup, where you would try to sneak up and tap and, to say, haha, I could have got you here, but I get this trophy, and I get bragging rights and everything. And so I would look at and I would know they're there, but I wouldn't look. And I would see them getting closer, and then I would look and be like, haha, I got you.
Ah, wow. Wow, what an experience. I think that's awesome that that happened to you as a child. What happened to me
Yeah,
as a
and
child is I would hear them outside playing. And then when I'd look out the window, there'd be no one there.
well, unfortunately, it's an hour and a half we're approaching, and I know it's late where you guys are because it's late here. We're in the same area, and so we also are in wintry weather. So it's like time to get warm and cozy for the night.
Yes, sir. Time to eat. I'm hungry.
Yeah, we're hungry. We're gonna go eat something. So, but we thank you so much, Mike, for having us on your program.
Thanks, sir.
And it has been such a wonderful hour and a half sharing our experiences with you and your audience. We hope that your audience will get something out of it. They'll either think we're crazy as loons, or
Well, hopefully they'll think, hey, that's a duo I want to investigate with.
well, we will be happy to investigate with them, and we want to put a shout out there for the for the para hunters out of Denton, Texas. And we do have a web page, and we would like for everyone to please follow us. I have some stories on there that have happened to me and some other people on our team. So we would love for them to follow us, follow our page, and we want to invite everybody to come out to HH&L in Jefferson, Texas, for the investigation that's going to take place there. It's a big paranormal investigation or convention, and it's really big. There will be 5 locations, 5 paranormal teams, and we'd love for everybody to come out and join in and have a great experience with all of us.
Yeah, you can walk around and join in with all 5 of the different locations and hunt ghosts with us and have experiences.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
Yes, I like to call them little scouting investigations.
right?
I love it.
We
And
did we had a lot of response last HH&L in
Yeah.
Jefferson. We recorded a lot of it actually, so it's pretty compelling.
Yes. So, and we hope to see you there, Mike.
yeah, I'm hoping I'll be able to make it. And if I can't make it in April, I'll try to make the second
November.
one,
Yeah.
usually in
Always,
November.
always the first weekend in November.
Yes, and Jody does a great job of getting speakers, great
Yes.
lineup, and vendors. And I will admit, I had a lot of fun hanging out with the para hunters
Oh,
during
thank
the
you.
day and chatting with you all.
Well, the parahunters will be there in April the 5th, and we would encourage everybody to come and find us at our location and ghost hunt with us. We love it. And if you're looking for a room, we recommend the Jefferson Hotel. Get your rooms at the Jefferson Hotel. And if you dare, stay in the doll room.
All right.
And
That's
I will
it.
say for Jefferson, if the Jefferson Hotel is booked, you can book the Con or the
Oh, yeah.
Excelsior. Both of those
Yeah.
are haunted as well.
Absolutely,
Yes.
sir.
And I recommend that if you're looking for a good place to eat, go to the Haywood House.
Oh yes. And if you're lucky, you can ask for the table that sits on the well.
And
Oh, the well
the
room.
well room.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And that's where we got the picture of the
Yeah.
black shadow
Absolutely.
in the well room.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And if you like Irish food, you can always go to McGarrity's.
Always go to McGarrity's. That's right. Yep. So again, thank you, Michael, for inviting us to be guest on your program, and we hope that your audience learned something from us. And if they have any questions, they can reach us on the Para Hunters Facebook page. We'd love to hear from them. and we'd love for them to follow us. And we'll look forward to seeing you again, Mike. And thank you again.
Yes, and hopefully we'll get you guys back on. And
Absolutely, yeah.
I-
More stories.
I would
We'll
love
have time.
I'd love to share my stories about my guardian angels because they do exist, and I would love to share that with your audience.
yes, and a quick shout out that if you do look up parrot hunters, if you're not sure if you found the right one, if you look at the thumbnail, the team logo is on there. So if you match the logo to the page, you're at the right spot.
Yes, and a big shout out to your podcast. Thank you so much, and we encourage everyone to keep listening. You have wonderful guests, and they tell the greatest stories about their experiences. And so we thank you, and we thank you for being an open platform to the paranormal world. It gives us a chance to share what's happened to us.
Thank you. And I got to say to Dale, that's the first time I've ever seen the fireworks. That was so cool how you
That was way cool,
did
right?
that.
How did that even happen? Was that paranormal? Did you do that? I didn't do that. I don't.
That's through the iPhone. If you do certain motions, we found out on an episode on another
Really?
show,
So, what was
it
I
starts
doing?
doing bubbly stuff.
Oh, it's a thumbs up. Oh, I love it. Sweet.
I love it.
That's what I was doing. If you do
Hey,
one, I
Mike.
think it puts a little bubble thumbs
Yeah.
up.
Hey,
And
Mike.
so
Let's tell everyone it was paranormal.
Now, let's be real.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Anyway, you have a good evening. Stay warm.
Thank you, Matt.
thank you, you
Mike.
Stay
too.
warm, brother.
And we'll talk soon.
All right.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.